Greetings and welcome, I'm Ash, and this is my review for ShipLord. Despite what you might think on first glance, ShipLord is not a space shooter, far from it. It completely forgoes any notion of offense and instead puts the focus on dodging and timely use of defensive abilities. Though be warned, just because there are no enemies to shoot doesn't mean you'll have an easy time, because ShipLord is immensely difficult, especially if you try and go for some of the higher ranks. Your goal in most missions is to collect quasar, shiny balls of light that appear periodically throughout missions. An easy concept on paper, but when you have 20 asteroids hurtling towards you at high speeds, it becomes a whole lot tougher. To help you out, ShipLord gives you free abilities on rather short cooldowns, and you will need to manage their use with great care in order to survive. The first, and personally the most important one, is the shield ability, which makes you invulnerable to damage and allows you to destroy asteroids simply by touching them. Despite the temptation, I would suggest using shield only as a last resort, because it is very easy to get yourself stuck in a certain doom type of situation on some of the later levels. Next up is the rather hard to use force field ability. What it does is it pushes asteroids away from you or sometimes towards you, even though I'm not actually sure if this is a bug or not, and it slows down time for a short duration. It sounds great, but there is a delay of about half a second before the ability kicks in, so unless you were on point with your timing, you might just have the asteroid freeze over your only escape route and end up screwing yourself over. The final and the simplest ability is Energy Collector. Once activated, it will suck up any quasar visible on the screen, and while this might not sound amazing, proper use of Energy Collector is mandatory once you reach the later stages. Abilities can also be upgraded with points you receive after beating a level. The higher your score, the higher the amount of points you get. The system is a great idea, but it feels half-finished because there are no real choices. Since there are only 6 upgrades, you will most likely get the cooldown ones with the first set of levels, and the rest of them are just going to be minor upgrades you don't really notice. Besides the upgrade points, the diamond rank will also unlock new ships for you, but they are mostly recolors of the base ship and are purely cosmetic, and as such don't offer any unique gameplay effects. This could have been a great opportunity to add new layers of replayability to the game, but as it stands you'll care more about unlocking the upgrade points rather than new ships, and that is a shame. Even though the upgrade system might not be the most exciting thing in the world, it is still very useful, especially on the harder stages where the number and speed of asteroids greatly increases. The missions themselves generally last around 2 minutes and ramp up with difficulty over time, so you will really need to be stingy with your cooldowns because you don't want to reach the final 20 seconds when all hell breaks loose without at least some form of a plan B. And speaking of difficulty, I'm not sure if I'm getting this across properly, but ShipLord is really hard. I've been playing it for a bunch of hours now, and I'm still stuck on level 13 despite many attempts. It all starts well and good, but once you get to the final 30 or so seconds, there are so many asteroids on the screen, my poor little brain gets overwhelmed and I mess up somewhere and then die. But don't get me wrong, I don't hate the difficulty. The asteroids all move from the right to the left in a predictable path, and even though some of them can be pretty fast, your ship can change course on a dime without any momentum issues. It is challenging, that's for sure, but it doesn't feel unfair most of the time. I say most because while the normal missions where you dodge asteroids work great with the somewhat floaty movement system, it is the boss battles where the system completely falls apart. I took it upon myself as a personal challenge to at least get diamond rank on each level, but doing so on bosses is needlessly frustrating. In the standard missions where you dodge large objects, your fast movement speed and floaty controls are a great boon, but on bosses that require a lot of precision, it becomes next to impossible to play. I quickly gave up on my old diamond dream when I couldn't even get past the first boss on diamond difficulty because he requires a continuous use of precise movement in a game that is simply not designed for that sort of thing. If you find yourself interested in ShipLord, take my advice and only do bosses in gold difficulty. That one is both fair and balanced. Just don't think you'll get through them easily just because this is the quote-unquote weakest difficulty, because you're still going to have one hell of an encounter. Graphically, ShipLord is a rather pretty game, though there isn't much that makes it stand out. The background images are well done and quite detailed, which means they are great to look at, but sometimes a great distraction, especially if there is a planet in the background that has a moon orbiting it. Since you might confuse the orbiting moon with an incoming asteroid and dodge nothing, only to end up dead because of it. But that minor quip aside, I do like the style they've gone for, especially with the oddly colored asteroids the game throws at you. I just wish they've gone a bit more unique with the whole atmosphere. The music, much like the graphics, is well done, though nothing about it stands out. It fits the game well and adds some much needed ambience to the levels, but it isn't something I would load up in my playlist afterwards. The story, however, is a bit of a mixed bag. While there are a few examples of extremely cheesy voice acting, it is overall pretty solid and sadly wasted on a rather terrible script. ShipLord isn't even a type of game that needs a story other than big bad guy go rawr. So I'm a bit confused why the developers opted to include one that is quite frankly on the really bad side of cheesy. Luckily, you can skip all of it and instantly get to the parts ShipLord does well, but it still begs the question of why bother. So in the end, what is my opinion on ShipLord? The gameplay, without considering bosses on higher difficulties, is nicely polished and balanced in such a way that you will never yell at the game for dying, but rather your own greed or lapse of judgment. Special abilities are satisfying to use, but a bit tricky to master, especially when the timer is running low and the asteroids are flying everywhere. I would say that I enjoyed my time with ShipLord, but I am an extremely stubborn guy that doesn't take kindly to a game beating him, so the difficulty and repetition did not affect me negatively. At the end of the day, your enjoyment of ShipLord will greatly depend on whether you enjoy a challenge or not. If you like a game where you can slowly watch yourself improve and get higher and higher scores, then ShipLord might be the one for you. On the other hand, if you find yourself easily frustrated with failure, then you might want to stay away because there is no easy road to success in ShipLord. You will fail, and you will fail a lot before you become good enough for the harder stages. Thank you guys for listening, and if you enjoyed this, please do leave a like, it ends up helping me a lot, and if you would like to see more, you can either subscribe here, or you can check out the website linked down below. That one tends to be updated more frequently. With all of that said, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you soon. See ya!